I'm Tina Williams-Caroma, CEO and founder of CyDeploy. Welcome to the event and demo. I see that we are now live, and I am going to go ahead and start this demo by going through a brief slide deck for about 10 minutes or so, see if there's any questions at a high level. And then we'll proceed with David in doing the actual demo. So David, if you want to give an intro, then I will go ahead and start with the slide deck. I think you're on mute, David.
Most definitely. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm excited to show you the functionality of CyDeploy. Again, looking forward to the conversations afterwards.
And back over to me. Okay, all right, so I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through the deck and then we'll hop into the demo. Please do include your questions and answers as I go through the deck. I'll pause in between going through the slide deck to give a high-level overview of CyDeploy and before David's demo. So if you put your Q&A there, I'll pause there before diving into the demo. So please do add them real time there and I will check for them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. So go to view and do the slideshow. All right. So David, are the slides live?
You're all good. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so CyDeploy is a cloud-based configuration and patch testing solution. The goal of CyDeploy is to help organizations to eradicate vulnerabilities without disrupting operations. So CyDeploy is looking to address this problem. The length of time that many organizations wait, 90 days to never, in making security updates and configurations. The underlying problem with this is that 80% of security breaches are because those systems, organization systems, are misconfigured or unpatched. That costs $4.2 million per breach per organization. So why are organizations waiting so long? For fear of the adverse impact of making those updates. So CyDeploy, just at a high level, it enables organizations to deploy security updates with confidence and increase update frequency by reducing test time. So this is certainly a huge opportunity here, and it's just looking at the opportunity over the next few years with U.S. enterprises, a subset, those particularly in highly regulated sectors, and small and medium-sized businesses that are critical suppliers for those U.S. enterprises, again, in highly regulated sectors, those such as the federal defense market, where with CMMC, the larger organizations, enterprises, starting with the government to a lot of the large primes on down to the suppliers, are required to meet and satisfy specific security requirements. So I recently conducted a survey on the Information Systems Security Association, a group that I'm a part of on LinkedIn, just to get some additional and updated insight around what's currently happening in the market. And unfortunately, when updates are being made, security configurations, patches, at least 10% said they don't test at all. 37% said they do a small deployment to production. And the other 53% indicated that they have a test environment that they spin up, but that spinning up as well as the testing often tends to be more manual. And so when we think about the problem and the tension between what I call the CISO and the CIO lane, where the CISO wants to deploy security updates ASAP because they don't want system downtime due to a breach, the CIO is concerned about those security updates themselves causing the downtime. And so there's a balance that has to get struck with the timeliness of making security updates and configurations. So further complicating the problem is that those responsible for making these updates, security updates, configurations, patches, are in high demand and low supply, with about 600,000 open cyber positions in the US. And we also have ever increasing compliance requirements around cybersecurity in maintaining the resilience of systems. So CyDeploy is an intelligent automated approach to functional testing that enables proper and timely security configurations and patches, reducing the likelihood of costly breaches and operational inefficiencies. So it helps weigh the scale between the CIO and the CISO concerns. At a high level, what CyDeploy does is it makes a digital twin of an end system. You're able to use automation to determine the security gaps in your system by running vulnerability, configuration, antivirus, and inventory scans in CyDeploy. You can do a functional test of your system before you make any security remediations to close those gaps. You can do the remediation, and then you can run functional testing after those gaps have been closed or remediated on your twin. And then you can compare, how did my system function before I made the security updates to close the gaps, and how does it function afterwards? So you can see that in your digital twin and understand what the functional impact would be prior to making those changes to your production environment. So in terms of the traction with CyDeploy, we have a very closely curated community of our target users, the IT managers, the system administrators, the change managers, those responsible for making and managing the security updates and changes in their environment. 90 plus stakeholder participants, those that we did interviews with, prospective customers that we surveyed, et cetera, to continue helping us to shape CyDeploy and add features in the future in a way and on a roadmap that customers such as yourselves would be interested in. We have strategic partners, having participated in the Amazon Web Services Accelerator and being accepted into the Google Accelerator, that program kicking off next week. So in terms of our strategy with customers, we are engaging those to participate in paid pilots first. So certainly if you are interested in participating in a pilot, you can send a note to sales@cydeploy.com. We'd be happy to have CyDeploy applied to the use case for your organization. Continuing from there, those that participate in the paid pilots are certainly ones that we see as early adopters and innovators that can help continue to shape our roadmap. As we get that clarity and feedback from the paid pilots, we'll be continuing on to scale from there through 2025. So CyDeploy is patent pending. We only have indirect competitors in the market, which I'll get into later. So if you're interested in our capability, then you'll want to come through us to get it. So CyDeploy is using machine learning and artificial intelligence to accomplish testing automation in the IT operations phase of a system life cycle. So whereas Functionize and Testim are focused in the software development or DevSec part of the life cycle, CyDeploy is focused on IT operations. When we look at the patch management focus, CyDeploy is focused on testing the impact of patches and configurations. That is where we are applying our automation versus some of our competitors in the bottom right, which are focused on using automation in the actual patch and configuration deployment process. And these companies in the bottom right are those that we would see as strategic integration partners now, and work with them so that organizations are able to test and CyDeploy and continue deploying with their patch deployment company of choice. So we focus on various images within your environment. So we anticipate that larger enterprises might have about 15 different images that might differ by department. And by images, we mean the combination of the operating system plus any applications plus the configuration settings. And so by department, those images might be different. So your legal versus marketing versus IT, et cetera, might have different images. So when you think about answering the question, if I make this update to within my organization's environment, what might the functional impact be? The answer to that question may differ by image because different departments may have different applications loaded on their end systems. So here's our team. I have been in the cyber field for over 20 years, started my career as a software developer at Lockheed Martin, and have rounded out my career with several different cybersecurity related functions, such as enterprise security, network security, endpoint encryption management, being a security manager on a software development team, and also some computer forensics. I went from Lockheed to Unisys, which is where David Stedman and I, you'll hear from him later to do the demo, first started working together almost 15 years or so ago now. We've got a really great team of developers. Our research partner is the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, led by Dr. Anupam Joshi, and our advisors, Luke Cooper and Lily Bangford, are also serial exited entrepreneurs with expertise both in the DoD federal space as well as with commercial. So in terms of the use cases that we've seen expressed interest with our current paid pilot participants typically fall into these categories. One is functional testing of workstation images. So the images, as I mentioned, contain the operating system, hardware, software, and configuration settings. As patches and configuration settings need to be deployed, you can test those out first in CyDeploy before deploying them to the rest of your organization. The other is around security scanning of new software installed. So if your change management team has the process of wanting to first understand some of the threats associated with any new software that you might want to install in your organization, you can have your image again uploaded to CyDeploy. You can do vulnerability, antivirus, and configuration scans on that new software to determine any gaps before you actually make that approval for that new software to be deployed into your production environment. Also functional testing in IoT and OT environments. IoT and OT tend to be connected back into servers that are IT. So you can image and test the updates on internet connected servers and ensure that those, as you're making updates there, don't have any adverse functional impacts. So that's something that can currently be done in CyDeploy. And as a future state, with IoT devices themselves, what we currently have in research and development now with our research partners, UMBC, is applying CyDeploy to IoT and OT types of devices. So as those device creators, manufacturers need to make updates to their devices from a security perspective, such as to meet the requirements from the legislation that was passed in early 2021 around the federal government's requirements for IoT use, then those manufacturers can come to CyDeploy to test out the functional impact of making specific security configuration changes to their devices. So initial test library includes tests for the technology listed here, but those that use CyDeploy, you're also able to create your own test. So if there's a test script in the library that you desire to have that's not presently there, our agent tool, you can decide and select to create do a manual functional test once. In CyDeploy, our tool will capture your recording activities, parse through that, and create a new functional test for you that will be available in your private library in CyDeploy that you can use to run through iteratively in the future in an automated fashion your functional tests. Ultimately, all the tests run across our customers are made into public versions that continue to get added to and expand our library. So the benefits of CyDeploy at high level are you have decreased time between patch and configuration updates, the length of time of open plan of action and milestones, which are POAMs, and decreased costs and level of effort for your team. You have increased efficiency in testing because of all of the automation available with the tests in our test library. You have increased capacity of your IT staff, so you can repurpose their time from doing manual tests or spinning up virtual machines manually. That can be something that CyDeploy does. And then increase confidence in making security updates. So again, helping to resolve and balance that tension between a CISO lane and a CIO lane. So thank you so much for your time, and I will exit here and see if there's any questions before we transition into the portion of this meeting that includes the demo. So let me go and stop sharing. All right, let me go to the Q&A. Okay, so far, I don't see that there's any questions presently. I will hand over the portion of this meeting to you, David.
Thanks, Tina. And like Tina said, we will go through the actual configuration as well as a live demo of the CyDeploy currently as we look at it today. And then we'll talk about sort of roadmap particular items. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Excellent. Just see if we can see the screen. Looks like we can. All right. And as Tina was talking about, again, CyDeploy, the first step is being able to create a cloud-based replica of your machine. The next step is actually creating that machine and then also performing automated test and remediation. And then from there, improving the overall system time through those functional tests. So we'll go through what that looks like. So when we begin, the first step is you sign up for an account. You then log in. Once you log in, you will have a download installer. You will take this installer and install on your machine. So what that looks like is if we venture over to our demo machine, we have CyDeploy installed already. You simply launch CyDeploy. That is going to run in the background and the user context. So the user that is actually logged in. And then from there, it's going to run for a few seconds. You're going to see a unique key that's going to be generated. From there, you're going to hit OK. That actually copies it to the clipboard. From there, you're going to also notice all these events or notifications that occur. All events and activities that are performed from the agent side are logged and monitored based on this notify, and as well as there is a log file to be able to see end-to-end what's happening or if there's an error or whatnot. So that is a good capability. So now that we've gotten the unique key, the idea is really you go to your systems, you have your system panes. This is where all your machines are going to be listed. If you're adding a new system, it's simply adding the system, and then from there, pasting the key, and then creating the system. Once you create the system, it will show up here. You'll have the details in this particular area. From there, you'll see that the machine unique key is there, where you'll have the system name and whether it's online. This is an indication that the agent, which is currently running, is online and available to execute commands as a parent machine. We call this our parent machine. So to create an image, as you can see, we have the capability of adding multiple images. That means multiple snapshots in a given time. So if you want to test certain scenarios, roll back to certain scenarios, you have the capability of doing that within the system. And one thing to note as well that we get asked a lot is, can I run this on a workload? Yes, the short answer is yes. These images are hosted what we call an Azure Bastion capability. So the Azure Bastion is created upon sign up, and then these machines are added to that isolated and secure location via the Azure Bastion. So if you have a workload that has 3 or 4 machines that need to talk to each other, you are able to bring those in to that isolated environment, and then they'll be able to talk to each other just like normal network traffic. The next step, as we said, if you want to create an image, you simply create the image, and then you have a prompt on this side on, again, just a classic prompt of making sure that you have enough storage. It does require at least 50% storage, and we'll be looking forward to updating this as a automated check versus a user check. So in this case, we're going to say yes. We have this automated upload. We are creating that clone, as you can see, with our alert, cloning local machine, and uploading. And that step will take some time depending on your upload speed. So let's go back to what are the next steps after you have the upload. So we'll let that run in the background. We'll go ahead and go back to our screen. Once you have the virtual machines available, you can create a virtual machine. So simply by creating a virtual machine, you can select your image that you're uploading. Here we have 2 images available. We should show a third once it's fully uploaded on our source machine that we created. Again, it does take time, does take internet speed, so it all depends on those variables, of course. But now we go into the interesting part. Now that we have the machine is running, as you can see, this is running on the virtual machine, and this is the child node that is running on. So as I mentioned earlier, we have what we call an Azure Bastion. So the process is that you would log into the secure tenant, you would log in using your Azure Bastion, and then provide the credentials of your machine. We do not house your credentials. We don't even want to know your credentials. So this is a pure connectivity between you and your machine. We're just providing the service in that secure isolated web interface, as we call it, Azure Bastion. So we know it's running, it's available. So now the next step is we want to run some scans. So the first step is we're going to go to access. As you can see, this connect would actually directly get you to the Azure Bastion and the connectivity. The first step is if we want to run a vulnerability scan, we can do that just by simply clicking on the vulnerability scan, and then that would execute in pretty short fashion. This vulnerability scan is using Vulmap, again, one of the known open source. Our plan for scanning and capability is having integration partners that have scanning capability as well as configuration scanning capabilities. So we are looking at integrating into some good no-name partners that are on the plot. So the next step is if we want to run a configuration scan, we can go ahead and do that. We're going to run this configuration scan using T-Secure scan. So this is running as we speak. And then also we have the third option, which is running a AV scan, and this is running the MS Cert scanner tool that is available from Microsoft. From security professionals, they're aware of the MS Cert scanner that allows you to scan offline. So we do have that capability in running those scans. So once the scans are done and once the configuration scan is done, now you can actually go and look at the report and what that looks like. So we head over to our reports, and then you can see that we have a full list of the reports itself. You can see by date, time, and then from there you can actually see the actual report being generated. And here you have the actual vulnerability scan sorted by high, medium, and low. Typically, folks go to the high. If I know my CISOs out there, they always go to the high. And then you can see what vulnerabilities that you want to mitigate. Likewise, if you go back to the reports, you can see the actual inventory of the actual machine. So if you click on that, you can actually see the inventory of the actual apps that are installed on this particular machine to the right. So that is the scanning capability of CyDeploy and the reporting capability. But really the biggest part that we are focused on is really around the actual testing itself. So if we look at the first item around testing, and as Tina mentioned in her earlier slide, is we have a concept of public test and private test. Our main focus was around public test, so that way we can bring you the capability of recording your own private tests. So in this case, we have a suite of tests that are available. Again, these are some of the scenarios that Tina was talking about that we had in our scope around recording a test. So how do you create what we call a test suite? So a test suite is a combination of multiple tests and multiple actions. So in this case, if we wanted to launch the application, which is Word, create a blank document, and then also write content to page, you're able to select them and add them to a test suite. Now, this also includes any private tests that you may have published. So this is a capability that we are continually adding feature sets to as we move forward. So what does it look like from a test suite? So as you can see, we have multiple different tests, and then from there, you can actually view what's in the test. So if you have more than one item, you can actually see in context of what the test is. So our ML AI logic records your activities on the screen of the states, understands sort of the natural language of what's happening on the screen versus, hey, I clicked here, I clicked there. It is actually bringing it into a context of you launched an application, you added a new slide, and then you started the presentation. Also, if, for instance, if you're doing a Word. So in this case, we have Word, creating a blank document. That's an example. Or maybe you're just launching a browser and checking a plugin. So again, we're focused on keeping that simplified testing, functional testing, as it relates to, again, certain activities on a machine. Now, this is really user-based context that we're looking at right now, but the idea is when we go to the server side is making sure that server services is running, making sure certain states of the machine, if it's a SQL server, it needs to be able to understand that the SQL Server cluster needs to be running and available. So that is the portion that we are driving towards, is being able to not just do user-based context, but also server-based context or administrative-based context on what is actually happening on the machine and what is needed to be running in order to make sure we're passing that functional test. So in this case, simply by running the test, as we can see, we can run the test. You can actually run this against multiple machines. This is a multi-select. So as you can see, you can deploy multiple machines, and then from there do a singular test across multiple suites of machines to see what the outcome is. So we're going to go ahead and run this test. As you can see, it's launching PowerPoint. And as you can see, it's again launching PowerPoint, and then from there in the designer, it is looking for a particular design. So that is one example. Another example, if we go into, again, running a simple case, again, these are all simplistic cases, but from a ML functional test standpoint, It's really being able to execute a certain given user contextual item from I launched Word, I created a document, or maybe you're updating a plugin, or maybe you're looking at a website. Maybe you want to make sure the website's plugin works. So in this case, we are launching Word, and then from there, it goes into a actual Word document. And then the next test, again, like I said, you can have multiple tests. I'm just showing you item by item. So, and again, this next one, let's see what this one is, view test. So that's creating a blank document. And then from there, let's just run this one. So in this case, the machine is typing, again, based on the user context of what is happening or what did happen on the prior recording of the screen, and being able to actually type out what's going on the screen. And this will get reported back as a successful run of this particular test. So as you've seen in the PowerPoint, there's 3 tests in there. From there, we carve out whether they're pass, fail, and you can actually see within the system that what was failed or passed. So now that that test is run, that is the user contextual. And then if we go into what we're looking at as far as reporting goes, we look at, again, being able to look at the actual comparison of what occurred on the machine. There we go. So we look at the report, we look at the success and the failures, as well as the comparison. So in this case, we have on the left-hand side, we have all the passes. We have the tests that were included in the test suite. And then from there, we have the right-hand side on what was failed. And then, of course, what the failure was. Essentially, could not find the file new button, and you're unable to grab that. So that is where we're moving towards as far as a reporting capability. Right now, we have our functional test at the moment, again, from a pass failure standpoint, and when it was actually passed or failed. So that is, again, the short, what I call the inner workings of being able to create a machine, execute an image capture, again, what we call cloning the image, uploading it, creating a virtual machine, accessing that virtual machine, and then from there running a scan, and then as well as running a test. Now, the next item that I want to show you is really key, and that is actually doing a recording. We are moving towards being able to do the recording. Now that we have our public test, you can add a public test to a suite. Now the next step is actually providing a capability to record machines or record actions on a machine in a contextual standpoint. So here we are actually going to start a recording. You can go ahead and start the recording. As you'll notice on the right-hand side, we should see the recording being executed. Again, this is recording all activities for the AI/ML model. Again, getting that contextual standpoint to be able to understand what is happening on screen, not from a mouse click standpoint, not from a what I call it the classic RPA standpoint, but actually getting the contextual. I opened up Word, I created a document, and I wrote some text on screen, right? And as well as like from a server standpoint, I opened up Exchange admin, I opened up SQL admin, I looked at services, I checked the services. So those contextual type of checks that makes functional testing a whole lot easier versus I clicked on this and I clicked on that. This recording runs for a duration of 1 minute. We do have a selection option to do the recording, and then from there it would actually be uploaded to our AI/ML model. And our current working is around being able to curate these recordings. So as you can see, the recording is done, and now that recording is being uploaded to our AI/ML model. And then from there, if you didn't want to be in the web, you can still initialize a recorder, essentially recording from the actual machine itself. So there's two ways to actually launch the recording in the context, whether it's the web or whether it's on the machine. As long as it's a child machine or a replica machine, you can launch this as it is required. And again, you can do this as many times as you want. And then from there, you'll have a location to go curate your actual recordings. And again, that's currently underway from a development standpoint. So that is, again, the end-to-end process of curating, of creating a recording, creating a test for your test suites, and then from there, creating that digital twin, as Tina mentions earlier, the end-to-end process, and also being able to report on what is happening on screen. So Tina, I don't know if we're coming up on almost 40 minutes after. Is there anything you want to add before we go ahead and close out? If there is questions on the Q&A, by all means, please post them or reach out to Tina or myself. We're happy to have a sidebar conversation if you're looking for more details.
Okay, thank you, David. I don't currently see any questions right now in the Q&A session. Maybe we'll just wait here a couple of minutes. That means we did a really great job then in explaining CyDeploy. If there are questions that you think of afterwards, please do feel free to send us a note. As David indicated, you can reach us at sales@CyDeploy.com. Again, that's sales@CyDeploy.com. We'd certainly be interested in talking with you and your team about setting up a pilot engagement with CyDeploy, having you as an innovator and early adopter. One of those benefits, of course, being development in the direction with features, additional features that may be of benefit to you and your team and your customers. So at this time, I think that we'll say thank you so much for joining us. And again, if you need to contact us, you can reach us at sales@CyDeploy.com. Thank you so much for your time and attendance.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.